Homecoming. Buffy and Cordelia feud over who will be homecoming queen, while a group of hunters tries to kill the Slayers.
The gang is discussing their homecoming plans, and Buffy is moping because Scott hasn't asked her. And then he appears, and they talk to each other. And that's in quotes, because words come out of their mouths, but I would not call it dialogue.
Yeah, and they awkwardly agree to go to homecoming together. Then she kisses him in front of everyone, which I thought was going to be a whole thing, but instead we cut to Angel.
And he shows he's on track to becoming his old self again by not closing his shirt. Buffy has brought him some blood soup and tells him that she hasn't told anyone he's back, for some reason.
I wondered where she got the blood from. Did she break into a hospital? That wouldn't be out of character, I guess. She says the others wouldn't understand that he's better, even though she already told them that he got his soul back.
She's not very smart.
I think that's about as polite as you could put it. And she tells him that she's involved with someone else. After spending the entire show up to this point talking about how much she likes Angel and being so torn up about him turning bad and then having to kill him, it only took a couple of months to move on to this guy that she barely knows. I can barely remember his name between scenes.
And then we get a quick cut to him breaking up with her. All of their scenes together put me to sleep.
I agree, and Buffy only seems mildly perturbed, which is understandable because Scott wasn't exactly a likable character.
And then we get the sad piano music because Buffy is sad again.
And then we get a really goofy reveal that twins are spying on her.
With high-tech flip phones and dial-up.
And they are relaying footage to Mr. Trick, who was previously working with Kakistos.
And is now working with Mr. Pitt.
An aide goes in to meet with the mayor about the twins who are wanted for murder. And the mayor is played by Tam Elbrin.
So I guess things didn't work out with Tin Man.
He tells his aide to keep him informed about any other weirdos that come to town, which must be a full-time job. And he gives off a threatening vibe while pretending to be very polite and nice, which was interesting.
I'm sure you were taking notes.
I wrote the book on that style. I don't need any notes.
At school, everybody's getting their yearbook picture taken, while Buffy and Faith are training in the library. Don't those doors have windows? Not to mention, again, that it's a school library and it's in the middle of the school day.
Cordelia goes to tell Buffy that she's missing the picture taking, but gets distracted campaigning for homecoming queen.
Buffy says she still needs a teacher recommendation,
even though it had already been established that Snyder was just making that up.
So she asks Vash. So I guess things didn't work out, exploring the galaxy with Q. What a step down.
And despite saying that Vash was her favorite teacher, she doesn't even seem to know who Buffy is.
Buffy is upset that she missed picture day, and she takes out her frustrations on Cordelia.
Even though it was her own responsibility to know when it was happening. And she complains that she's not Miss Popular like she was at her old school. Good to know she has her priorities in order.
And she claims she will run for homecoming queen.
And beat Cordelia at her own game.
Mr. Trick is talking to a group of people, planning Slayerfest 98.
The group includes the twins, who are working with Mr. Pitt, the dumb country vampire from Bad Eggs, Stegron the dinosaur man, and some random guy. They all put in money, and whoever kills the Slayers gets the pot.
Willow and Xander are trying on outfits for homecoming.
For some reason in the same room.
And they have a moment where they decide to start falling for each other, dance, and make out.
I don't know. I don't even know what to say. Remember back when they almost kissed at the beginning of season 2? Because the writers must have completely forgotten about it.
I think they just get a new set of writers for every season. And it's a prerequisite that you can't have watched any earlier episodes. Buffy is planning her campaign to win homecoming queen, and it gets awkward when it turns out that the gang is already helping Cordelia.
They shamefully walk off with her, and Buffy assures Giles that it's all in good fun.
It's not like anyone takes it that seriously.
Then we get a big old montage of everybody doing their planning, including the monster group.
A lot of it was dumb, but funny. And I liked how manipulative Buffy gets.
You know, Jonathan, I've always felt a special bond between you and me.
Was it supposed to be funny that those two people were smashing those chocolate cupcakes into their faces?
Yeah, I thought that was a little weird. I don't know.
Cordelia and Buffy start outright bitching at each other.
And Willow tries to talk to Xander, which turns into them talking about each other.
They decide that they need to fix the group dynamic, so they force Buffy and Cordelia to share the limo ride to the homecoming dance to make up.
But it turns out the driver is one of the twins, which means he could have killed them both and won, right? I don't know what the rules are.
They could have just blown up the car.
Or put up the divider and just injected some deadly gas.
I suppose.
Because that's really easy to do.
The limo drops them off in the woods, and they find a tape left by Mr. Trick.
Which explains that they are going to be hunted, with Cordelia having been taken instead of Faith.
I like how they went through the process of actually developing a Slayerfest logo and little jingle to go with it.
A human hunter with a gun attacks first, and ends up with his leg in a bear trap, and Buffy threatening to blow his head off. So he tells her who else they're dealing with, and they have to run because they get attacked again.
Back at the dance, Xander and Willow are moping, and Giles makes a good joke.
We have to find Buffy. Something terrible's happened. Just kidding. Thought I'd give you a scare.
Buffy and Cordelia end up in a cabin with a sweet chicken lamp.
I did not notice that.
How could you not? It was an excellent lamp.
It appears to be abandoned, and Buffy says they should be safe there for a while, even though there's no reason to think so. I would have thought it was filled with traps.
They find a phone,
which works for some reason,
and call Giles for help, but Mr. Pitt cuts them off before the whole message gets through.
Back at the dance, Faith embarrasses Scott because I don't know.
Yeah, this was a great episode.
Cordelia keeps complaining about how she's going to die, and instead of dealing with the fact that people and demons are trying to kill them, they keep arguing, and Buffy mopes about how being a Slayer is all that her life is. We've never heard that one before.
She says she just wants to do normal things and all the other shit she's been spouting out for 3 seasons.
It reminded me of how shallow she can be, but not in a funny way like the campaigning scenes. This is an example of humor feeling out of place with what's actually happening in the scene.
But I didn't think it was funny.
Some of the Cordelia stuff was funny.
Right, but not the Buffy stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm ready for this show to switch main characters. Scott. The guy you don't remember.
And Buffy cocks her gun, but she already did that earlier. And a shell doesn't pop out, which means it must be empty. Stegron jumps in through a window and swings his dumb X-Men The Last Stand wrist blades around. Cordelia grabs the gun and fires a shot, so I guess she must have loaded it off screen.
And while they're fighting, the twins fire a super delayed rocket into the cabin, giving them more than enough time to escape. Why didn't it just explode on impact? I thought it was going to be tear gas or something. At the school, Giles has gotten Buffy's message, but he's been knocked out by Cowboy Vampire.
And his wife. And we see that they have accessed the weapons in the cage. And again, this is during the homecoming dance.
And I was assuming it took place at the school. Sometimes it doesn't, but...
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I don't actually know where it's happening.
Yeah.
It's probably an abandoned warehouse somewhere.
It's called the Bronze, Robert. Mr. Pitt is monitoring Cordelia and Buffy using TicTactics when Mr. Trick is arrested.
But for some reason, they don't get Mr. Pitt.
And for some reason, Mr. Trick does not turn into a vampire and just break away.
Buffy and Cordelia get to the school, where they are ambushed by the country vampire and his wife, who knocks Buffy out.
But then she gets staked by a spatula that Buffy found in the cabin.
Cordelia banks on the country vampire not knowing that she isn't the other Slayer, and intimidates him into leaving. Which means, unfortunately, that he will probably show up again later.
Buffy figures out that Mr. Pitt is tracking them by using their corsages.
And even though Mr. Pitt keeps giving the twins very specific directions as to the whereabouts of Buffy and Cordelia, they keep looking all around. And just like Xander, they don't know how to properly hold their weapons.
Buffy has seen Looney Tunes cartoons, so she uses one of those plans to get them to shoot each other.
Which causes Mr. Pitt to think that the Slayers have been eliminated, and that he has won.
Tic-tac-toe.
Mr. Trick is taken into Mayor Elbrun's office.
And it turns out that he wants to recruit him.
And he tells him he needs the Slayers taken care of without actually stating it directly. And then he asks him if he wants a...
moist towelette?
I liked his weird quirkiness.
We close at the homecoming dance, where the homecoming queen is announced as a tie, but between 2 other people, not Buffy and Cordelia.
Which I thought was a nice twist, and I like that the episode just ends right there with them leaving. Homecoming. Overall,
Buffy and Cordelia haven't had a lot of character interaction, so it was interesting to see, but it felt a little contrived to have them decide to run against each other for Homecoming Queen. That's the best way the writers could think of to have an episode centered around these two. That whole subplot didn't really make much sense, but I'm glad they managed to patch up the problems that they artificially created at the beginning of the episode. We both mentioned before how having Xander and Willow's will they won't they relationship thing be really dumb and not make any sense, but in this episode, it still didn't make any sense. So neither the main plot nor the subplot made much sense. What a good combination. The humor in this one was pretty good, and we actually got some stuff with the mayor, who we've been hearing about for a long time, so that was nice. And he turned out to be an interesting character, and I look forward to him interacting with Snyder. I think that would be funny. So is Scott done? Are we done with that whole thing?
I hope so.
Because, okay. And what about Angel? He was in the beginning, eating his soup, but then he wasn't mentioned again, so I guess he just wanted his soup. Buffy could bring him some buttons for his shirt next time. Overall, the episode worked, even though there were some things that were questionable. I gave it a C.
I gave it a C+. Buffy's motivations in this episode made her seem stupid, and Cordelia even points out that it's stupid. And I get that it's supposed to humanize Buffy to have her want a normal life, but that could be conveyed much more effectively than how it's done here. And the show hasn't done that very well in general, especially since she only seems to care about it every once in a while. I know that Buffy is somewhat inspired by Peter Parker, but the early Spider-Man comics do a much better job with stuff like that. And this episode made me think of Spider-Man because Cordelia being mistaken for Faith reminded me a lot of Amazing Spider-Man number 5, where Dr. Doom tries to capture Spider-Man and gets Flash Thompson in a Spider-Man costume by mistake. That was something that was really funny in the comic, and I expected it to be funnier in the show than it ended up being. Again, a lot of the jokes didn't feel like they fit with what was actually happening in the situations, but I did still think it was funny sometimes. The part of the episode I liked the most was the campaigning stuff. That was where having Buffy act the way she did was purely for humor, as opposed to the scenes in the house where she's supposed to feel sympathetic, and instead just comes off as shallow, so I thought that worked a lot better. The Scott subplot felt like it was just done away with because it wasn't going anywhere, which is probably good in the long run, but it definitely felt mishandled. The whole Slayer hunting aspect was a cool idea, but the characters doing the hunting were all pretty stupid, especially the twins that were supposed to seem very high-tech and dangerous, but just came off as completely inept. I like that their dead bodies are just laying there in the school, and that nobody reacted to all the gunshots. I do wonder if we're going to see Mr. Pitt again, and I did like finally getting to meet the mayor, who had a good, strong presence and an interesting personality, and it's clear that he's going to be a big threat with wide-ranging resources. I just hope he doesn't do the typical thing of throwing random things at Buffy from the sidelines without actually advancing any plot lines.